All right, guys. So as we were looking yesterday at Toni Morrison's "The Work You Do, the Person You Are," and we were reading through that, we kind of discussed the work ethic of teenagers and how that has adapted over time. And so what I would like for you guys to do is take a look at this Padlet. You guys can go ahead and scan that on your phone. There's also the link on Schoology, so if you prefer, you can go ahead and look at that. Um, but the question that I would like for you guys to answer today is, what is the value of work for teenagers? So if you look below this, we have Morrison expressed many different ideas about the purpose of hard work when she was a teenager. As times have changed since then, how do you feel the value of work has also adapted to the eyes of teenagers? So she did a lot of analysis about the purpose that this work held among many. Would you guys say that? Thanks, buddy. So she did a lot of analysis about the work um, and the role that teenagers have within having like jobs outside of school, and the purpose. And her purpose was partially to provide for her family and to help her mom out with things. And additionally, we saw that she spent some of that money on things that she enjoyed as well. And so I want you guys to think about, what purpose do high school jobs and having a job as a teenager serve today? How has this differed from the 1940s when we talk about an economy like the 1940s? Okay, hey, yo, awesome, excellent contribution, guys. Let's go ahead and answer this question. We don't want to work for rewards. Okay. What do you mean by that?
Like, you want me to talk about it?
Yes, that would be great.
So, like, we just want to, like, people don't want to work today. They would just rather be given the things rather than having to actually work for them.
Okay, so like the expectation within Morrison's time was that you have a job and that you have to work hard. So you are kind of assuming that you do not need to abide by those same standards today.
Yeah, because I feel like back in the day, people would just work because they had to help take care of their family, whereas nowadays, we're not really expected to do that. We can just kind of wait and see what happens type of deal.
Okay, yep, I definitely think that's very applicable. People don't want to work, they are lazy. Okay, why do you think that? Who put that one up there? No? Okay. So yeah, I mean, I think that could definitely contribute to it as well, like people being lazy. Let's see. Move some of these real quick. People don't want to work, they're lazy, we have that component. Do you guys think that Morrison, back in her day, there were people who were lazy then?
Well, I mean, I'm sure there were lazy people,
Mm-hmm.
but I felt like it was a necessity. Like, if you wanted to eat, you had to do that. Whereas, like, we don't really struggle with that today.
Okay. So there is definitely more, like it was more of a necessity now versus now it's more of a luxury.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see some more contributions to this. Okay. Work is not necessarily required to survive. Okay, so that was similar to what Devin was just saying. How do I move this one out of the way? Okay, we may work for our families, but that would probably be the only reason. It's not something we want to do in the future, so it's not valuable. Okay, so providing for your families. So that was kind of the circumstances that they were living in within this time period. But now that's not necessarily as applicable. It's not something we want to do in the future, so it's not valuable. What do we mean by that? Like maybe working at like Wendy's or something like that is maybe not where you want to be long term. Okay, that's kind of what we're meaning there. All right, that's fair. That's fair. So it's more of a you got to do what you got to do, but you don't find ambition within that.
Hey, Natalie, how are you doing today?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm so glad that you were able to implement some of the strategies we discussed. And so, what's on your mind? How did they go?
Um, I think it was kind of a mixed bag. So with my first class I did it with, I teach honors freshmen in that class.
Okay.
Although I use that term lightly. So I think for the most part, like it wasn't terrible, but there were some more simplistic responses. There were a
Okay.
couple, inappropriate responses here and there. But it was relatively easy to nip that in the bud. I think despite me trying to encourage multiple students to participate, it tended to be like those same kids again. And so I did notice that there was a little bit more participation.
Okay.
I think due to the technically anonymous nature of it, although I
Uh-huh.
asked them to, participate, it was still kind of so.
Okay. Right. I did see during the observation we had like a follow-up question to some of the responses that were given, and it still was just very quiet. It was
Yeah.
hard to get anyone to interact.
Right. So I think they were more willing to respond on paper, but it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. Now
Uh-huh.
with my other class, it's a smaller class and it's a pre-AP class, and so those are
Okay.
very high achieving students. And I ended up with some really good responses in there. And I think that because those kids are typically more likely to engage in class, but even then, it's still the same, 4 or 5 kids.
Right.
Whereas I had the entire class respond, and I think they were well articulated responses, and they were able to like genuinely convey what they wanted to say with them. And I think that was just really productive.
Great. Good. So we think that maybe Padlet is something going forward that you could continue to use for
Yeah.
specific classes.
I think
Okay.
that's going to be the key. It's going to
Okay.
be analyzing the maturity of the classroom and
Okay.
If that's something that they're capable of.
Gotcha. I
I think
totally get
anytime you
that.
give them the autonomy there, they need to be able to handle it.
Okay. What are some things that you think might have helped maybe with a Padlet? Maybe more requirements or like a specific set of expectations? Anything with that one platform you think we could have amplified or did better maybe?
I think the one thing I would do next time is I would
Mhm.
have them sign into Padlet. Like I would have
Okay.
them make their own account. That way, it has to say their name. So if
Okay.
they're putting something inappropriate on there, their name is attached to it.
Okay.
The anonymous nature, while it can be great so kids don't feel singled out,
Mhm.
it can also just kind of be frustrating, especially when I'm teaching freshmen.
I get that, and I unfortunately too have dealt with that before.
Right.
You get some students who are very in the moment, very excited to articulate in a silent per se discussion, while
Sure.
others just see this as a goofy opportunity
Right.
to play around.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's see. Anything that surprised you about the ability of the Padlet that maybe helped amplify just those rich discussions? I mean, I guess with your pre-AP class,
Correct.
do you think you would have had these same responses if they were asked to verbally articulate them?
No, I don't, and that was something
Okay.
that I was really happy with because while I think they still would have responded, they wouldn't have had the time to consider what they were thinking about and to
Okay.
articulate it in that way. And I have them do a lot of stuff on paper, but I think it's the fact that they were able to scan a QR code and type it on their phone made it
Uh-huh.
that much easier. And I also think that it just like helped with just giving them the time to formulate those responses.
Okay.
And I think that that allowed for them to just partake in a more rich discussion. And then afterwards, I went through and I read each of their responses off, and we kind of talked about those as a class because they'd be like, "Oh, I didn't think about that point. Let's expand on that." And so, while it offered everyone to include their own ideas, it also allowed for them to expand on other people's.
Okay.
I think that was
awesome.
productive.
Well, I think that Padlet should definitely work in the future for those classes who you deem are
Right.
fit for it.
Sure.
Now it looks like the goal needs to be to kind of back up and punt with your
Other
maybe
class.
lower achieving classes
Sure.
or those classes where the maturity levels just maybe aren't where we need them to be.
Right.
So let's see. I don't know that we need to change our goal
Mm-hmm.
of engaging students in rich discussion,
Right.
but maybe looking at some different platforms
Sure.
of productivity that can be utilized. I was thinking, the last time we looked at Jamboard, I
Mhm.
feel like that's probably going to encounter the same,
Same kind of,
type
yeah.
of issues. But I think maybe something like Flipgrid,
Yes, I
where
agree.
students are required to sign in into the platform and into your class,
Mhm.
and then they're able to identify who they are,
Right.
and then they're actually able to articulate through video.
Right.
Now they can cover their faces with emojis or a picture
Sure.
or blur themselves out, but at least it would allow them to still richly engage in a
Right.
discussion where they have to articulate their thoughts
Mhm.
and they're not able to be as goofy. And then
Yeah.
maybe if we put some parameters around, like, I hate to penalize them, but, losing points for discussions or having this as a graded assignment
Mhm. Yeah.
if they're silly, you know.
Well, and I think that's what helped too, with just the idea
Mhm.
of like having their face attached to the thing, whether it be their face or
Yeah.
their blurred face. I think creates a deeper level of responsibility,
Mhm.
and I think that could be productive. I think that would be more productive with this class, especially since they are just such a rambunctious class at times. I think getting to record themselves, especially in our TikTok like generation that we're
Yeah,
teaching.
It's very much more authentic.
Right.
Mhm.
So I think that for this class in particular, something like that might be more productive.
Okay. So let's plan to meet again soon.
Okay.
Let's give you, because I would like for you to play around with Flipgrid.
Sure.
We did actually look at Flipgrid as a potential option when I was modeling the different platforms.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at that again. Let's play around with it. Let's set up a class. And then see if that might be something that is rich enough, that's authentic, that's engaging
Mhm.
for your students and require them to be, say, okay, here, this is me, this is what I'm going to be contributing to the conversation, and then set those parameters around what those expectations are.
Mm-hmm.
And I was even thinking, because you wanted them to be authentically who they are, so you can actually respond with little GIFs and different emojis.
Right.
And so even if they can play around with that stuff a little bit, maybe it'll kind of still engage them enough,
Mm-hmm.
but they'll still be required to put forth the efforts for the
Right.
complexity of the conversation too.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like it'd be productive.
Okay, cool. So let's plan on, I'm going to give you maybe a week.
Yeah.
Does that
would work.
sound good? And then we can play around with them and then let's meet again maybe after Thanksgiving break.
That sounds great.
All right. Well, thank you. Do you have any other questions or any concerns?
No, I'm looking forward to it.
All right, awesome.